What's up, EDH enthusiasts? We are the Planeswalker Project, and we're back with another Precon upgrade guide. Today we'll be looking at the Universes Beyond Fallout set, specifically the Scrappy Survivors deck. This is a red, green, and white commander deck that leans into both aura enchantments and equipment artifacts for a Voltron strategy. So with that, let's discuss this Precon deck. We are led by Dogmeat Everloyal, a 3/3 legendary dog for 3 mana. When he enters, you mill 5 and then return an aura or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever a creature you control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, you create a junk token. Junk tokens are artifact tokens that can sap and sack to exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Activate only at a sorcery speed. Dogmeat is such a heckin' good boy. We get to dig 5 deep, which can be surprisingly effective should our deck be heavy enough on the target cards, which it should be, but what's more impressive is that this can target either or of the 2 card types. This does dump a clump of cards into the bin, but that can give us access to them later on, either through a re-entering Dogmeat or another card in the 99. See, Voltron decks often take one of 2 routes. You can go the enchantment route and double down on the auras to buff up your singular creature to go into combat, or you can go with artifact equipment spells, which tend to be a little bit more resilient to removal. It's tricky to do both in a singular deck, as the cards that support either of the 2 generally don't acknowledge the other, but this deck does try to disprove that by accomplishing both in a hybrid of the 2 that we're just going to have to put to the test here. As for our second commander, we have Preston Garvey Minuteman, who is a 4/4 human soldier for 5 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a green aura enchantment token named Settlement that's attached to up to 1 target land you control. It has Enchant Land, and Enchanted Land has tap to add 1 mana of any color. Whenever Preston Garvey attacks, you untap each enchanted permanent you control. So Preston Garvey leans more into the enchantment side of things, so like I said before, he offers us a unique and on-theme way to fix our mana, by turning each of our enchanted lands into effectively Birds of Paradise. What's more is upon attack, he untaps our enchanted permanents, acting as almost a restrained Seedborn Muse. I personally prefer Dogmeat in the context of building a deck centered around using both types of Voltron pieces, but Preston Garvey would be very effective if you wanted to try shifting over to just using the enchantments only. But now let's look at some of the better new cards from this deck. We got over 3 dozen new cards in this deck alone, which means some are going to be better than others. I'm going to save you a bit of time and energy and pick out the ones that I think hold their own the best in this kind of deck, and so when you begin to upgrade this to your personal tastes, well, you should probably leave these cards in your deck. Armory Paladin is a 3/3 for 3 with Trample. Whenever you cast an aura or equipment spell, you exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card until the end of your next turn. This is pure value. See, enchantment decks have this little thing called enchantresses, which are a series of creatures that give you card advantage whenever you cast an enchantment. Equipped decks have it too, to some capacity, but this gives you impulsive card draw, which is a pretty nice compromise on getting both types of cards. Being able to play the card until the end of your next turn gives you a ton of flexibility, so if you exile something like an instant, like a prime piece of removal or interaction, you can actually just hold up on it until you need it. This also lacks any form of once per turn clause nonsense, so you can hypothetically exile multiple cards to hold up. Kate Cage Brawler is a 1/1 for 2 mana. As long as it's your turn, Kate has Indestructible. Whenever she attacks, you and the defending player each draw a card and then discard a card. You put 2+1/+1 counters onto Kate if you discarded the card with the highest mana value among the discarded cards or is tied for the highest. This is fun and would make for a very fun commander deck of her own. She's indestructible on your turn, which means something like World Slayer would be super fun to put on her and swing in with. She also gives you a loot effect, letting you cycle a card in your hand, and if you drop the card with the greater mana value, she gets 2+1/+1 counters on her, making her grow as a threat. There are a lot of factors that take into consideration when working with her, as you can choose to pitch a high-costed card to ensure that you get the counters, or hope that an opponent pitches something like a land in an attempt to hold up their better cards. Either way, I think this is a very creative design on a card, and in a Voltron strategy, this will be great to work with. Cass, Hand of Vengeance, is a 4/3 for 4 mana with Vigilance. Whenever Cass or another creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, you can return any number of aura cards that were enchanting that creature back to the battlefield, enchanting another single creature, and then attach as many equipments as were attached to that creature to the new one. This is fantastic, and it addresses a critical flaw in many aura-themed decks. See, when a creature dies, if it has equipment attached to it, the equipment will remain on the battlefield. Auras do not. They go to the graveyard with the creature they enchanted. So this means if you put all your eggs into one basket and your big bulky creature friend dies, you're SOL. Cast helps you recycle those cards and gets them back onto the battlefield. You do need to have another creature to reattach those cards to, but obviously you're going to have Cast on the battlefield, so if you haven't got a better creature to attach to, Cast will definitely do. Codsworth, Handy Helper, is a 2/3 robot for 3. Commanders you control have Ward 2. It has 2 activated abilities. You can tap Codsworth to add 2 white mana, spendable only on auras or equipment spell castings. You can tap him to attach target aura or equipment you control to a target creature you control, but this can only be done at sorcery speed. This is really neat. First of all, despite Codsworth being in white, this does actually give him great access to a great many Voltron decks, as many of the better cards for that strategy are at least partially in white. Giving commanders Ward 2 is just silly at this point, but it's very strong and effective. The other 2 abilities are great value in helping support the Voltron strategy, even if the second activated ability comes with sorcery speed restrictions. 3-Dog Galaxy News DJ is a 1/5 human bard for 3 mana. Whenever you attack, you can pay 2 and sacrifice an aura that's attached to 3-Dog. When you sack an aura this way, for each other attacking creature you control, you create a token that's a copy of that aura attached to that creature. This is a really strong ability, and it lends itself to a unique style of Voltron deck that I've started to see cards popping up for. See, normally a Voltron deck simply takes one creature, buffs it up with equipments and enchantments, and calls it a day. With 3-Dog, we actually have the potential to build up several cards. Copying auras can have a huge snowballing effect. A card like All That Glitters will get a huge boost in power simply from having multiple copies of itself across several creatures. There aren't any enchantments in this Precon deck that will have an enter ability to draw a card, but adding them in would give you multiple card draw triggers. All that value for just 2 mana on attack. Pip-Boy 3000 is an equipment for 1 mana that equips for 2. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, you choose from one of the following 3 modes. You can sort your inventory, which draws you a card, then you discard a card. Pick a perk, where you put a +1/+1 counter onto the creature, or check map, where you get to untap up to 2 target lands. All of these are huge value on a very cheaply costed equipment spell. I've grown to really love the cycling style of card draw that red decks bring to the table, and considering our commander Dogmeat can return an aura or equipment from our graveyard to our hand, this means that we can use the discarding abilities of many of these cards to our advantage and build up our graveyard for just a slight bit of recursion later on. Silver Shroud Costume is a 2 mana equipment that equips for 3. It has flash, and when it enters, it attaches to target creature you control, and then that creature gains Shroud until the end of turn. Finally, the equipped creature cannot be blocked. This is a bit of a wonky version of Lightning Greaves minus the haste enabler, and I really like this. It makes the creature unblockable altogether, even after the end of turn Shroud wears off. Having flash means this can be used defensively to drop in as a creature gets targeted to protect it from that interaction. But what I really like is that you can technically ignore the equip cost if the creature you attach it to is already the one that you plan to make unblockable. It coming in and attaches for free mitigates the equip cost, making it tremendously valuable. Animal Friend is a 2 mana aura. When the enchanted creature attacks, you create a 1/1 squirrel creature token. You then put a +1/+1 counter onto that token for each aura and equipment attached to the enchanted creature other than an Animal Friend. This is brilliant, and it can make you potentially a large squirrel token each turn. If you followed this channel long enough, you'll know that squirrels are my favorite creature type, and so this is so on brand for me. So now that we've gone over the best new cards, let's look at reprints. This deck has quite a few good cards that will make great starts to your upgrade. Pure Steel Paladin is an all-star in Voltron equipment strategies, giving you a card draw whenever an equipment enters under your control. Once you control 3 or more artifacts, your equipment now have equip for 0. That is an amazing amount of value, and it saves you so much mana in the long run. It's only counting artifacts, so it's not specifically equipments, and so once your mana rocks and artifact creatures are in play, they will all contribute to that metalcraft. Chaos Warp is a fantastic removal piece in red, but it does come at the slight risk of the opponent top decking something worse than what you removed. You can also use this on yourself, swapping out a less powerful card to take a chance at pulling something better. Heroic Intervention is a crucial response card to opponents trying to wipe your board or get rid of your permanents. This gives both hexproof and indestructible, meaning your board state isn't going anywhere. Path to Exile is in here as well, and I'm beginning to think that this card is finally getting the reprint treatment that it desperately needed for a while. 1 mana for a creature removal spell is a mainstay in any white interaction package, and for a long time it was expensive and hard to come by. Now, we're starting to see this pop up quite often, which I think is a very good thing. Basilisk Collar is a very useful equipment, giving both lifelink and death touch on a very cheap equipment card. Both are extremely relevant keywords and can make the smallest creature into a threat. So you're now looking to upgrade your deck, and while you can absolutely take the deck into one direction, focusing on either more auras or the equipments, I think for the sake of keeping the deck's theme fully intact, I'm going to try to keep it onto both strategies. We're going to try to do the delicate dance of both aura enchantments and the equipment artifacts. And we're going to add in 10 cards, remove 10 cards, all within the budget of $20. Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist, is a 2/2 for 3 mana. The main ability triggers at the beginning of combat on your turn, letting you attach any number of auras and equipment you control to a target permanent or player. This is excellent to swap all of your auras and equipment cards over to whatever the best option for them would be. I would swap this out for Megaton's Fate. Megaton's Fate is a very expensive to cast spell, and for what it does, there are just better options out there. Armored Skyhunter is a 4 mana 3/3 with flying. When it attacks, you can peek at the top 6 cards of your library. You can put an aura or equipment from among them onto the battlefield. If you put an equipment onto the battlefield this way, you can attach it to a creature you control. The rest go to the bottom of the library. This is a great way to help dig deep for more auras and equipment, and you can put them into play. Because you're doing this on attack, this actually can be used offensively to make some combat tricks. I would swap this in for the Agility Bobblehead. I love the Bobblehead cards, and I am working on something to utilize them, but I just don't think that they do as much for the deck as we'd like at this time. Chishiro, the Shattered Blade, is a 4/4 for 4. Whenever an aura or equipment enters the battlefield under our control, you can create a 2/2 red spirit creature token with Menace. At the beginning of your end step, you put a +1/+1 counter onto each modified creature you control. This is a great way to utilize your aura and equipments to get additional bodies on the battlefield, and Chishiro helps pump up those creatures that already have auras and equipments attached to them. This would be a very good substitute for the Perception Bobblehead, which again isn't as useful to the deck as I'd like it to be. It is one of the better Bobblehead cards as it does function as a mana rock and lets you play some spells off the top of your library, but still the value that Chishiro offers is monumentally better. Danitha, New Manalia's Light, is a 2/2 for 3 with Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. Once during each of your turns, you can cast an aura or equipment spell from your graveyard. See, this is the kind of recursion that synergizes very nicely with Dogmeat's ability, and it can make use of the discard ability that this deck manages to have quite a lot of. We discard quite a bit in this deck, and if we have Danitha in play, we can plan ahead and send some auras and equipments to the grave for us to cast later on. Let's take out Acquired Mutation, which is cool to give rad counters out, but I think that there are better cards to help this deck seize victory sooner. Rayav, Master Smith, is a 2/2 for 2. Whenever a creature that you control that's either equipped or enchanted attacks, that creature gains double strike until the end of turn. This is pretty cut and dry bonus, as double strike is tremendous in combat. That it triggers off of both equipped and enchanted creatures, this is super effective however we need it to work. Grim Reaper Sprint would be the card to cut for this, as it is powerful, but I'm not a fan of this card. We also want both Setessan Champion and SRAM Senior Edificer. Both are our Enchantress style cards that will draw us cards as we play our equipments and enchantments. Card draw is so valuable in a deck that wants to play aggressively, as we can refill our hand as we play out our cards. I hate to do this, but I would cut Squirrel's Nest and Vault 21 House Gambit. Both of these really don't contribute to the deck's strategy, and I would rather get card draw in place of what they can contribute. Along those same lines, we have Wyleth, Soul of Steel, a 3-drop 2/2 with Trample. Whenever Wyleth attacks, you draw a card for each aura and equipment attached to it. This is a phenomenal option to load up all of your equipment onto, as we'll get an additional card drawn for each. I would cut Big Horner Rancher, it's okay as a mana dork, but at 5 mana, it doesn't do a ton towards the deck's strategy. Lastly, we have Open the Armory and Sigarda's Aid, both of which are powerful options for Voltron decks like this. Both of these cards also support both auras and equipment, making them very flexible for whatever situation we may need them for. Open the Armory serves as a very flexible tutor, and Sigarda's Aid allows us to hold up those equipment and auras, and now, because they have flash, we can use them defensively and attach for free to a creature we control. Now, for those two, I think it's weird to cut, but I do think we would want to remove 2 land cards. This will bring our land count down to 36, but given our deck's playstyle, I think we should be okay. Specifically, Path of Ancestry, since we don't run any dogs other than dog meat, so that won't give us any scry value, and then Scavenger Grounds. I don't need graveyard hate if our deck is dumping cards in the graveyard for us to use later. I'm going to continue working with this deck because I think this is very intriguing. Dogmeat was the first card from this set I was super interested in, and I really like that it's doing a nice hybrid strategy of auras and equipments. I think it'll make for a very fun game plan. Dogmeat is adorable, it's a German Shepherd, how can you not love them, and this should prove to be very strong on its own. Are there other cards that you think we should add in or cut? Let's discuss it in the comments section of this video. If you enjoyed this video, likes and shares are what help give us the happy juice and helps us navigate through the hostilities of the YouTube algorithm wasteland. If you're new here, subscribe to ensure your spot in Vault 56 where you get to hang out with me, the great comedian, whenever we come up with new material. And as always, I appreciate you spending your time here, and I'll see you all in the next video.